People spend their whole lives chasing respect, yet it can vanish in a single careless moment. You've seen it. Someone talks too much, bends too easily, or tries too hard to be liked, and suddenly their stature collapses. Respect, once lost, is rarely regained. But here lies the paradox. Some individuals walk into a room and command silence, while others beg for recognition and are ignored. Why does respect cling to a few, yet slip from the grasp of so many? The answer is not charm, not wealth, not popularity. It is an ancient trick, so old it was practiced by emperors, generals, and philosophers alike. A principle so simple, yet so brutal, that it flips the balance of power instantly. This is not about being liked. Liking is fragile. Respect is iron. And if you master this timeless law, they'll respect you before you even speak. Respect is not usually destroyed by dramatic failures or public humiliations. More often, it is eroded quietly, piece by piece, through habits so small we barely notice them. Most people sabotage their own authority not because they are weak, but because they act without awareness. They talk too much, explain themselves when no explanation is needed, reveal their insecurities in search of comfort, or apologize for things that do not require forgiveness. These habits seem harmless in the moment, but over time they corrode the foundation of respect. Society encourages these patterns. From childhood, you are told to be agreeable, to be accommodating, to avoid offending others. You are rewarded for compliance, praised for politeness, and conditioned to believe that being liked is the same as being respected. But the truth is harsher. Agreeableness may win approval, but it rarely commands respect. In fact, the more you bend, the more people take you for granted. Respect is built on perception, not intention. When you over-explain, people sense desperation. When you overshare, they sense weakness. When you apologize unnecessarily, they sense inferiority. None of these things may reflect your true character, but perception is stronger than reality. To the world, you are not what you feel inside, you are what your behavior communicates. This is why respect feels so unstable. It is not enough to be good, smart, or kind. You can embody all of these qualities and still be dismissed. Respect is not lost through failure. It is lost through exposure. Every extra word, every nervous laugh, every gesture that gives away too much chips away at the image others hold of you. And once that image fractures, it is almost impossible to restore. Think of people you know who are ignored or dismissed. They are not necessarily weak, but they project weakness. They fill silence with chatter. They justify their every move. They soften their presence with apologies and nervous energy. Their behavior creates an aura of low value, and people respond to them accordingly. The dark truth is that respect is never neutral. It is always rising or falling. Every word you speak either strengthens your presence or diminishes it. Every gesture either builds your stature or reduces it. Respect is not a steady mountain. It is a tightrope. One careless movement tilts the balance, and once you lean too far, gravity takes over. This is the hidden problem most people never see. They believe respect is earned once and kept forever. But in reality, it is fragile, fluid, and easily destroyed by unconscious habits. And until you see these patterns for what they are, a silent enemy, you will continue to hand your respect away, piece by piece, without even knowing it. From the time we are children, society feeds us the same polished promise. If you are nice, if you are helpful, if you always put others first, you will be respected. Teachers reward the obedient child, parents praise the agreeable one, and workplaces glorify the team player who never makes waves. On the surface, this seems noble, even virtuous. But beneath the surface lies a brutal truth. Friendliness is not the same as respect. Everyone knows the too nice person in a group. They are always available, always smiling, always willing to do the work others avoid. People tolerate them, sometimes even like them, but they never admire them. Their kindness may win temporary approval, but it never commands reverence. Why? Because kindness without strength creates comfort, not awe. And comfort breeds familiarity, which in turn breeds dismissal. Kindness is not inherently bad. When combined with power, it becomes influence. But when it stands alone, it makes you forgettable. A man who bends to every demand and avoids every conflict may win praise for his generosity. Yet behind closed doors, others mock his softness. They will use his willingness, but they will never fear losing him. They will thank him for his service, but they will never follow his lead. Modern culture has confused likability with authority. Social media pushes us to be agreeable. Workplaces encourage niceness as the highest virtue, and personal relationships often guilt us into self-sacrifice. Yet history, psychology, and human nature reveal the opposite pattern. People respect strength, not softness. The general who commands silence, the leader who can say no, the individual who draws boundaries. These are the ones who inspire loyalty and fear. To be clear, cruelty is not the path to respect. Brutality without wisdom destroys just as quickly as weakness does. But the belief that endless kindness will secure your place is a lie. In fact, the more you try to win respect through niceness, the more people sense that you are seeking approval. And approval seekers are rarely respected. Respect requires tension. It requires an edge, a distance that prevents people from seeing you as ordinary. Awe is born not from comfort but from controlled strength. People follow those they sense could live without them, not those who constantly prove they cannot. The poetic brutality of it is this: to be endlessly kind is to be endlessly forgettable. A man who tries to be everyone's friend fades into the background, his presence diluted by his desire to please. But the one who knows when to withhold, when to restrain, when to deny, his presence burns into memory. Respect is not a reward for kindness. It is a recognition of power. And until you see the lie for what it is, you will remain in the shadows of those who never cared about being liked, but were always respected. There is an ancient trick so simple, yet so rare, that it has separated rulers from followers for centuries. It is not strength of muscle, not wealth, not even brilliance of mind. It is controlled silence, the ability to speak less, to restrain one's tongue, and to let silence itself carry weight. Respect is not born from excess, it is born from restraint. In ancient courts, this truth was understood instinctively. Generals, philosophers, and kings measured their words like coins of gold. A single sentence from their lips carried more weight than the endless chatter of their advisors. When they spoke, silence followed because silence had preceded. The restraint itself gave gravity to their speech. People leaned forward to hear every word, because the man who does not speak often must have something worth listening to. Psychology confirms what the ancients already knew. Humans equate brevity with authority. The fewer words you use, the more value people assign to them. The speaker who explains too much appears insecure, while the one who withholds creates mystery. Mystery, in turn, creates respect. It is not the abundance of words that commands attention, but the scarcity. Contrast is everything. The talkative man reveals too much, his doubts, his eagerness, his need for validation. Each word chips away at the aura of strength he wishes to project. In trying to impress, he dilutes himself. The silent man, however, radiates power. His silence is not emptiness but a mirror, reflecting the insecurity of those who cannot bear the void. People begin to imagine depth where there may be none, and that imagined depth becomes authority. History remembers those who mastered this law. Marcus Aurelius, whose words were rare but immortal. Samurai warriors who believed silence was a weapon sharper than steel. Machiavelli, who advised rulers to speak less than they knew. Even in modern times, leaders who choose their words sparingly are seen as wise, while those who ramble are dismissed. The pattern has never changed because human perception has never changed. Controlled silence is not about muteness. It is about timing. It is the pause before answering a question, the refusal to explain what does not need explaining, the choice to let others fill the silence with their own weakness. Every restrained word builds your aura. Every needless one dismantles it. This is the ancient trick. You do not chase respect through noise. You draw it to you by creating gravity through silence. It is a discipline, a weapon, and a shield. And once you master it, Respect will not be begged from others. It will be pulled from them as naturally as breath. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but in truth, silence is presence. It is the invisible weight that presses against the air, making others lean toward you, making them wonder what you are thinking. Controlled silence is not a void. It is tension. And tension always demands attention. When paired with body language, silence becomes an aura. A man who speaks little but carries himself with composure radiates dominance. His posture communicates certainty. His stillness suggests control. His eyes anchor the room. Without a single word, he creates the sensation that others must adjust to him, not the other way around. This is the predator's aura, the power of presence that makes people respect you before you speak. Eye contact is the simplest amplifier. Not the nervous darting of a man desperate for approval, but the steady, measured gaze of someone unshaken. Posture is another. Standing tall, shoulders back, movements deliberate, you project authority even in silence. And when words finally come, they strike harder because of the quiet that preceded them. Even pauses become weapons. A controlled pause unsettles others, forcing them to fill the silence with their own words, their own insecurity. Contrast this with the weak. Weak men chase presence with noise. They laugh too loudly, speak too often, and move too quickly. Their energy spreads outward in desperation, begging the room to notice them. But the more they chase presence, the more it slips away. People sense the neediness behind the noise, and respect evaporates. Strong men never chase it. They allow presence to build naturally in stillness, in restraint, in patience. This is why predators in nature do not announce themselves. The lion does not roar to be respected. It is respected because it doesn't need to. Its stillness, its calm, its sheer presence communicates power more than sound ever could. Humans are no different. A man who knows how to wield silence and control his body becomes magnetic. Others sense instinctively that he is not to be taken lightly. Presence is not about taking space, it is about controlling it. You do not need to dominate every conversation, only the atmosphere. When people feel your silence, your gaze, your composure, they respect you before they even know why. They cannot articulate it, but they feel it. And feelings are stronger than logic. The predator's aura is not built overnight. It is crafted through discipline, through mastery of silence, posture, and restraint. But once you possess it, you no longer need to demand respect. Respect will find you, drawn to the gravity of your presence. Respect is fragile, and its greatest enemy is not weakness, but overexposure. Words, though powerful, are double-edged blades. Used with restraint, they cut with precision. Used carelessly, they dull your presence and expose your flaws. The paradox is cruel. The more you reveal, the less others value you. Throughout history, leaders have risen and fallen by their tongues. Those who spoke too much lost their gravity. They revealed their insecurities, exposed their contradictions, and surrendered the aura that once commanded silence. Think of the rulers who tried to explain away every decision, the politicians who drowned their power in endless speeches. Their words became noise, and noise makes even authority sound desperate. Meanwhile, those who measured their speech, who gave the world only fragments, were remembered as wise, even legendary. Psychology explains why. Humans are drawn to mystery. What is withheld feels more valuable than what is given freely. When you overshare, you cheapen yourself. Every detail offered, every emotion confessed, every story repeated makes you ordinary. And ordinariness is the death of respect. People admire what they do not fully understand. They dismiss what they can easily predict. Mystery builds authority. Oversharing breeds dismissal. The man who reveals everything loses the tension that creates respect. He becomes transparent, predictable, and forgettable. The man who holds back becomes magnetic because others lean into the silence, trying to decipher what he has not said. They imagine depth, and in imagining it, they grant him authority. This is why respect is so often destroyed not by failure, but by noise. Overexposure strips away your aura and reduces you to just another voice in the crowd. The strongest presence is not the loudest. It is the one that speaks only when necessary, and only enough to shift the atmosphere. The dark insight is simple but brutal. Respect dies in the noise of your own voice. Every extra word, every unnecessary explanation, every careless confession weakens the image you project. And once people see you as ordinary, no amount of talking can restore the mystery that was lost. The discipline of silence is not about saying nothing. It is about refusing to say everything. It is about letting your presence, your posture, and your restraint speak louder than your tongue. In a world where people constantly overshare, the one who withholds becomes unforgettable. To protect your respect, you must guard your words as if they were treasure. Reveal little, speak only with purpose, and never forget. The less they know, the more they imagine, and imagination is where respect is born. To understand why silence and restraint command respect, you must look to the stage of history. Across empires, dynasties, and civilizations, the men who mastered silence were elevated above those who wasted words. Respect has always gravitated toward the figure who spoke less, yet carried more weight. Consider the Roman general. In the chaos of battle, soldiers looked not for chatter but for calm, measured commands. A leader who wasted words appeared desperate. A leader who chose silence radiated control. Julius Caesar was known for calculated brevity. His famous phrase, Veni, Vidi, Vici, contained more power in 3 words than others did in hours of speeches. The restraint itself became part of his legend. The samurai, too, understood that silence was a weapon. Their code, Bushido, taught them that speech could reveal weakness. To remain silent in the face of insult was not cowardice but dominance. Their presence was sharpened by stillness, their authority reinforced by mystery. The fewer words spoken, the more their aura grew. Even in philosophy, this law endures. Socrates often taught by asking questions, then listening. His power was not in lecturing endlessly, but in drawing others into silence and making them wrestle with their own contradictions. Machiavelli himself wrote that a prince should speak little and listen much, for in silence lies strategy. History also punishes those who ignored this truth. Leaders who tried to justify themselves endlessly were seen as weak. Kings who overshared their fears lost loyalty. Rulers who begged for understanding found only rebellion. Respect withers under too much exposure, but flourishes under control. The archetype of the silent strategist exists in every culture. The emperor who speaks only during decisive moments. The philosopher whose few words echo across centuries. The warrior who holds his tongue until the strike. These figures are remembered not for filling the air, but for controlling it. Their restraint became their crown. And though centuries have passed, the principle has not changed. Human psychology is constant. People still respect the man who says less but radiates certainty. They still distrust the one who speaks too much, sensing his need for validation. Technology has accelerated speech, but it has not rewritten human instinct. The quiet strategist of the past is mirrored today in leaders, thinkers, and individuals who know that silence builds power. The lesson of history is clear. Respect is not demanded by noise, it is drawn by gravity. Those who restrained their words carved legacies. Those who squandered them were forgotten. And if you seek respect in your own life, you must learn not to speak more, but to speak less, and let the silence itself become your authority. Silence is not simply the absence of words. It is a weapon. When used deliberately, it unsettles, intimidates, and bends others toward your will. To master silence is to engage in psychological warfare without ever lifting a finger. Think of how the human mind reacts to a gap in sound. The brain craves completion, explanation, and certainty. When you remain silent, you deny others that closure. They begin filling in the blanks themselves, projecting power, wisdom, or menace onto you. This is why silence is never neutral. It always tilts the balance of power in your favor. Consider a negotiation. The average man rushes to fill silence with words, offering concessions he never intended, exposing weakness he should have hidden. But the man who waits, calm, composed, unflinching, forces the other side to break. They interpret his silence as strength, as knowledge he is not revealing. In truth, he may know nothing more than them, but restraint makes him seem superior. In arguments, silence magnifies tension. The talkative opponent digs himself into a hole with every word, while you, with your controlled stillness, create an invisible wall of dominance. Your refusal to engage on their level makes them feel small, frantic, and desperate to win your approval. Silence also amplifies presence. In a room full of chatter, the one man who speaks little becomes the center of gravity. Every glance shifts toward him, waiting for a word, a signal, an opinion. And when he finally chooses to speak, his words land like iron, because silence has made the audience starve for them. The danger lies in misunderstanding silence as passivity. Passive silence is weakness, timid, uncertain, afraid. But controlled silence is an active force, sharp as a blade. Says, I am in command. I choose when and how the world hears me. This distinction is everything. Psychologists know that mystery breeds projection. People respect what they cannot fully read, because the unknown always carries the possibility of power. The less you expose, the more they imagine. This is why leaders, predators, and manipulators use silence not just as discipline, but as dominance. There is also fear in silence. Humans are wired to equate stillness with threat. The lion crouching in grass, the snake coiled and waiting. This instinct remains buried in us. When you remain silent in moments of pressure, you awaken that primal unease in others. They feel the weight of your restraint as if it were danger itself. Silence, then, is not absence but presence. It is not retreat but control. Used well, it makes people lean toward you, doubt themselves, and hand you their respect without knowing why. The world thinks warfare is loud. Armies clashing, voices raised, egos roaring. But the deadliest victories are won in silence. The man who masters his tongue masters the battlefield of human psychology. Silence is a weapon only if you know how to wield it. Too much and you become irrelevant. Too little and you become forgettable. The blueprint lies in balance, using silence deliberately, like a blade drawn only when necessary. 1. In conversations, speak less, mean more. Most people vomit words, afraid of empty air. You must do the opposite. Answer with brevity. Let pauses breathe. If someone asks you a difficult question, resist the instinct to rush. Pause, hold their eyes, then speak slowly. That pause creates gravity, and they will assume your silence was filled with thought, even if it wasn't. 2. In negotiations, let them break first when discussing terms. Ask a question and then stop talking. Do not rescue them from discomfort. Humans are wired to fill silence with offers, explanations, or apologies. Let them. The one who talks most loses. Silence forces others to reveal too much, while you remain unreadable. 3. In social dynamics, the magnet of mystery at gatherings, resist being the loudest voice. Instead, anchor yourself in calm stillness. Contribute only when your words will tilt the direction of the group. This restraint makes you magnetic. People lean toward the man who doesn't give himself away. The loud one becomes background noise. The quiet one becomes unforgettable. 4. In conflict, starve the fire. Arguments thrive on reaction. The more you speak, the more ammunition you give your opponent. Silence, combined with unbroken eye contact, suffocates the fight. It forces the other person to burn themselves out, looking smaller and weaker as they rant against your calm. 5. In leadership, weight every word. Leaders are judged not by how much they speak, but by how little they must. If you want respect, choose words that cut cleanly, then let silence frame them. A single sentence delivered with presence is worth more than 1,000 shouted commands. 6. In relationships, control emotional exposure. The urge to over-explain, justify, or constantly reassure erodes respect. Learn to let silence hold space. A measured pause before responding signals composure and strength. It tells the other person you are not driven by emotion, but by choice. 7. The daily drill. Practice the pause every day, train yourself to delay response. In texts, wait. In conversations, pause. In meetings, speak last. Over time, this discipline rewires your instinct away from impulsive chatter into deliberate speech. People will notice even if they cannot explain why. The key is intent. Silence without control is weakness. Silence with purpose is dominance. Use it to create tension, to force others into movement, to make your words echo louder than the noise around you. Respect is not in being heard constantly. It is in being heard rarely and only when it matters. Speak less. Pause more. Let the world bend into your silence. Respect is not begged for, and it is never gifted, it is commanded. And the man who commands it does so without noise, without pleading, without ever chasing it. He moves differently. He speaks less, but when he does, the world listens. Throughout history, from emperors to generals, from philosophers to predators in the wild, one truth has remained unchanged. Power belongs to those who do not waste themselves. The weak man spends his life trying to prove his worth. The strong man knows his worth and lets others discover it in the silence. Here lies the brutal paradox. The more you demand respect, the less of it you receive. The more you explain, the smaller you appear. But the one who controls his voice, his presence, and his silence becomes untouchable. He radiates authority because he does not need validation. He does not chase the room chases him. Controlled silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. It is presence. It is the art of restraint, where every pause builds gravity, every glance becomes a command, and every measured word cuts deeper than endless chatter. The predator never announces itself. The lion does not roar for attention. It is respected precisely because it does not need to. You must become the same. Still, composed, deliberate. Speak rarely, but when you do, let your words land like steel. So, when you walk into the room, remember, respect is not in the noise you make, but in the silence you command. Let others rush. Let them stumble over their words. Let them drown themselves in their need to be heard. You will stand calm, immovable, untouchable. That is the man who commands respect. And once you master this art, people will not just hear you. They will feel you.